is not going to work. But so I'm fully committed to what it is I'm doing. I really wanted to make sure that the people who were supporting Ron Paul had as many quivers in their intellectual, as many arrows in their intellectual quiver as I could think of. I didn't change my stance on political action, but I definitely wanted to encourage people to really go full tilt boogie towards that, because I think there's no freedom from illusion like commitment. So, does that help?
Hi, Stefan. Just wanted to thank you once again for coming to Vancouver and to the other speakers. My quick question is, it might be kind of silly, but let's go back to the Gulch scenario, this sort of microcosm of a libertarian society. Let's pretend that one of our protagonists gets a debilitating disease, and let's just say that he doesn't have any savings, but he worked hard his whole life. What is to happen to him in that microcosm of that libertarian society? Would it be like that movie The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio, where they just stuck the guy in the tent and let him die, ignored him? What do you think it would be in that microcosm environment? What is the philosophical?
Well, there's two ways to help people in a free society. There's insurance and there's charity. And both of these have been proving incredibly effective in the past, right? So insurance, there were these things called friendly societies which occurred before the welfare state, where poor people would get together and they'd all pool their resources and requirements, and they'd come up with a big collective bargaining agreement, so to speak, with an insurance company, and it was incredibly cheap. I saw this at Libertopia 2 years ago, and don't quote me on it, some crazy sum, like $100 a year in current dollars got you really decent health care. So, of course, you want healthcare to be as cheap as possible, which means the free market. You want friendly societies will emerge to fill the vacuum. Life is risk. We never know when we're going to get sick or what's going to happen. So people band together to deal with those risks. And for people who have never had a community, have never paid into insurance, and have no money, doctors used to give, I think it was a day a week sometimes, they used to give for free, or they'd be paid in chickens, or they'd be paid in kind. There were charitable organizations and so on. And yes, it certainly is conceivable that some people will fall through the cracks. But as we all know here, what is it, a third of Canadians can't find a primary care physician, they can't get a family doctor. People are waiting up to 2 years for cataract surgeries. It can't be worse in a free society than the way it's going right now. And this is even if we don't count the fact that the healthcare system is ridiculously underfunded, incredibly in debt, and what's going to happen when it can't pay the bills at all anymore. So, again, it's not a perfect society in a free society, but it's a lot better. Maybe you'll be unemployed for a week or two after you stop being a slave, but it's better than being a slave. So, yeah, I think the charity, prevention, all these kinds of things are the way that it goes. And, if the Canadian healthcare system or socialized medicine reflects the true will of the people, then people care about sick people. I believe. Who wouldn't care if some guy's sick and he needs some help? We all chip in, right? That's what people do. If people don't do that, then democracy means nothing, because we have all these systems that nobody wants. But if democracy does represent what people want, then people do want to help the poor, and they do want to help the sick, they do want to help the old, so we don't need the ridiculous overhead of the state where 80% of the money goes to bureaucracy and crap, and only 20% of it ends up with the poor. It's much more efficient to give your money to a private charity, and that's how people can really be helped. We're going to do a duet, aren't you? I'm looking at that suit. Feeling.
Here's the question. I would ask you to elaborate a little bit.
Sorry, just repeat that first bit again, because I never get that. Just one more time, but slowly. If you want me to elaborate.
Please do.
2,500 podcasts, I'm being asked to elaborate.
All right, let's start again.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you to elaborate on, as far as I understood it, you meant to say that you disagreed with the idea that laws, at least some laws, should be observed. And I happen to be a lawyer and a copyright lawyer at that. So I'm just trying.
There's only one of you.
I'm just trying to understand. I think it's with laws, it's the opposite of a dialogue for thin people. It's dialogue for people who are not thin, or people who try to get them. So if I misunderstood you, I'd like you to clarify that. And if I understood you correctly but didn't get you on the basics of that, that'd be again that very much.
Do you mean sort of modern status law?
So that
modern state law, is that what you mean? Like it's only applied against those who are doing wrong, is that?
Yeah.
But it's not.
No,
I mean, vast majority of people in
I'm not saying we don't have any
crimes.
garbage laws. Most of the laws we have.
No, but even the whole process. Does anybody know what percentage of American cases actually ever get to trial?
3 to 5.
Yeah, 3 to 5%. Everything else is plea bargained down because they pile these ridiculous threats on you and people just cave. And I can understand why. I mean, so we have no legal system at the moment. I mean, we have a legal system that just threats and coercion and semi-fascism. I mean, in my opinion, you don't know the guilt or innocence of anybody in that system. Once you get caught up in that machinery, you're just going to get, you can't bribe a judge, but you can threaten someone with 20 years and then get them to confess, because that's not bribing you with your freedom versus $10,000. I mean, it's crazy. Sorry, that's not, but that would be...
But isn't that the result of the government's failure to actually fulfill one of its primary roles, which is to have a system of courts that works?
Well, I would not argue that the purpose of the state is to fulfill any good obligations. The purpose of the state is to provide free evil to those who want it, and to have a system where you can avoid the consequences for the wrongs that you do. You can do unbelievable evils in government and retire with a gold-plated pension and healthcare. So, there is this idea that the government has this noble purpose and has deviated from it. I don't share that particular opinion, because the government is founded on the initiation of force, which is an immoral concept to begin with. And I don't think you can, you can get roses out of fertilizer, but you can't get virtue out of the shit of the state.
Then 2 questions. Should there be any enforcement? And if yes, what would be the basis of that enforcement?
You mean for like contract law or violent crimes and so on?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. I mean, we all want protection, all these kinds of things, and of course the majority of protection in the world is provided by private companies, security guards, all this kind of stuff. So that can all continue. Not to go too much off topic, but the roots of human violence are pretty well understood now. I mean, it's abused childhoods produce criminals. Not all abused victims become criminals, but almost all criminals were abused as... So if we can apply the non-aggression principle to children, what a shock. Where we can actually do good, right? Spanking is a violation, I argue, of the initiation of force, so is verbal bullying, verbal abuse, and so on, neglect, and so on. If we have children raised peacefully, the estimates are 80 to 90% of crime will vanish. And the only people who will remain are the people who want to start up the government again, and I think we will not pay much attention to those. So we're only going to have a free society when children are raised peacefully, in my argument. And once we have that, the problems of random crime will be, it'd be like taking out insurance for an asteroid strike on your car. I mean, you could if you want, but it's going to be so rare, you don't really need to worry about it.
Isn't that about just reducing the number of laws to just 1?
Reducing the number of
laws to 1, the non-aggression, but it's still a law.
No, that's a principle. A law is something that is enforced by a monopoly. No, you would have a series. I mean, you would buy protection for your contracts, and so if you welch on my contract, some insurance company will pay me, and those principles, the cost of that will go down the more honorable we are, for the longer we are, and so there's lots of ways to protect yourself against pollution. There's, Walter Block's done some great work on this, as Murray Rothbard and all these other people have as well. So you can look into all of these free market solutions to all of these kinds of problems. There is a great temptation. We have this big stick called the state, which we think can wave away problems. I don't think it can. I think it causes many more problems than it solves. And I'll take my risks with voluntarism over the certain growth and eventual collapse of civilization that statism engenders.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last question.
Sorry, I'm going to start with some information, Stefan. We keep talking about how a private healthcare system would work, but we forget that in Canada we actually had one, and it was nationalized.
Yeah.
I had my first child before the government nationalized healthcare. And we had insurance, and we paid a portion of all of our fees. But I grew up in Kitchener. There were free clinics every week. Doctors did pro bono work. There were free, not fertility, but the opposite.
Birth control.
Birth control, thank you, sorry, I lost that. Clinics, doctors had a variable billing system. If they knew or thought that your family was a little bit less able to pay, they charged you less, sometimes even forgot to invoice you. And those who had more money paid a bigger price. They didn't necessarily get ahead of the line, but they might have. In Ontario, and I don't know what the stats are for the rest of Canada, only 10% of the population was uninsured at the time they nationalized the system.
Yeah.
So they started by making it a welfare thing, set up a whole healthcare system to handle the 10%, somebody in the back room said, all the money's going up, none's coming in.